This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm your host, Chase Sr. Thanks for hanging out, supporting the channel, and watching today's show. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up icon as well if you want to support this video and support what I do in general as we talk about the Niners every single day year-round. Coming up here over the course of the next several minutes, we're going to take a look at the latest Niners playoff picture. San Francisco pretty much got the best news possible during the bye week. What do I mean by that? It's coming up here in just a bit. Let's set the table by first taking a look at the NFC playoff picture going into Week 14. Niners have a bye week that's in Week 14, which is so late. I can't recall the Niners having a bye week this late in a really long time, maybe ever. Kyle Shanahan even said, I haven't been in a situation like this my entire coaching career. But the Niners are sitting pretty right now. They've won 3 games in a row. They're 9-4 on the year. With all of the adversity they've had to face and deal with, it's incredible to me that San Francisco, even though they've had an easier schedule, is still 9-4, and they still have an opportunity to potentially get the #1 seed in the NFC. What a wild and wacky year across the NFL. And the Chicago Bears, it's part of the crazy year that we've had here in 2025. The #1 seed in the NFC at 9-3 because the Rams lost as 10-point favorites to the Panthers last Sunday. They dropped down to the #2 seed. Philadelphia Eagles have lost 2 games in a row. They're 8-4, the 3 spot there, leading the NFC East over the Dallas Cowboys, who are surging. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 4 seed at 7-5. Seattle Seahawks, 5 seed at 9-3. Packers, 6 seed at 8-3-1. And the Niners, they might have more wins than the Packers, but the Packers are ahead of them because of winning percentage, and San Francisco is 9-4. I can't really recall 3 wildcard teams having that good of a record going into Week 14. Usually those types of teams with that type of record, they're leading their divisions. But the NFC is wide open, which is interesting because it might be wide open. There's not a clear favorite, yet a lot of these teams have really good records. Of note, I'm recording this on Thursday. There is a Thursday night football game, which is massive, between the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys. Regardless of who wins that game, it doesn't impact the top 7 seeds. But if their records change by the time that you watch this video, obviously, Detroit 7-5, Dallas 6-5-1, winners of 3 straight games going into Thursday night. That is why. And you take a gander at the Niners' remaining schedule. Bye week in Week 14, as noted. They come out of the bye. They will host the Tennessee Titans at Levi's Stadium. You got to win that game. And the Niners are already massive favorites against Tennessee, one of the worst teams in the NFL. They'll have a top 3 pick in the NFL draft. Then things start to get intriguing, interesting, fascinating, exciting, exhilarating. The final 3 games for San Francisco, as good as it gets. And when the NFL schedule makers put together this schedule, they devised a great ending of the year for San Francisco as far as intrigue, because all of these games are literally going to have playoff implications, and all of these games are going to have a playoff feel. The Colts are 8-4, and going into Week 14, they are the #5 seed, I believe, in the AFC. And they've been reeling a little bit of late as Daniel Jones has come back to life. So they badly need a win on Monday Night Football. The Chicago Bears, as of right now, the #1 seed. But with the loss, they could drop down, and the Niners could surpass them this weekend. Oh, how quickly things could change. And then the division, the #1 seed, a high seed, the opportunity to have a playoff game in the wild card round, have a bye week in the wild card round, could come down realistically to this Week 18 game between the Niners and the Seahawks at Levi's Stadium. And obviously Seattle looking for revenge because the Niners walked into their trap and took over their trap in Week 1 to start the 2025 campaign. And how about this? I talked about this earlier this week, but not everybody watches every single video, although I highly encourage you to do that because we're pumping out great content here. How about this? The Niners have a better chance of getting the #1 seed than they do of missing the NFL playoffs. And did you know that the Niners could jump from the #7 seed to the #2 seed this weekend without even having to play a game? Here's how. There are 3 games that we're really going to be focusing in on this weekend, which I can't wait as we don't have to do a watch party on Sunday. So I'll be sitting on my couch, cup of coffee in the morning after a workout. I'll watch a pregame show, and then for the rest of the day, I'm planting my ass on that couch, and I am watching NFL football from the start of the day all the way through Sunday Night Football. And I cannot wait. Game number 1 that we'll be looking at here. Chicago Bears on the road against the Green Bay Packers. Lambeau Field in December between two teams vying potentially for the number 1 seed, two teams vying for the NFC North crown. The intensity of this game between two teams that hate each other is going to be epic. Now, the Packers, surprisingly, 6.5-point favorites. I think the Bears are getting disrespected in this game, just like I thought they got disrespected last week when they were 7-point underdogs against the Eagles. I smashed Chicago +7. The over-under, 44.5. It's going to be cold, and it's going to be a classic NFC North bout. The second game that matters for San Francisco this weekend is 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. So the early slate for everybody out there. The Seahawks on the road against Atlanta. Seattle, 7-point favorites over-under at 44.5. And then the last one is also in that afternoon slot. Rams on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. Anything can happen in a divisional game. The Niners, yes, beat LA once, beat the Cardinals twice. Obviously, Arizona isn't a great team, and they're 8-point dogs in this game. But the Rams losses 8.5-point favorites against the Niners earlier this year. Last week, they lost against Carolina as 10-point favorites. So a lot of people will say there's no way that the chips are going to fall in the Niners' favor. You don't know that. That's why there is that saying, any given Sunday, because the NFL is so competitive and a majority of games are decided by one score or less. And Arizona this year, they haven't won in a couple of months. They are a pesky team that has been very competitive this season. And so, how could the Niners go from the 7 seed to the 2 seed? Bears-Packers scenario number 1. If the Bears beat the Packers, the Niners move up to the number 6 seed and they pass Green Bay. Green Bay would then fall to the 7 seed. Bears-Packers scenario numero 2. If the Packers beat the Bears, the Niners move up to the number 6 seed and they pass Chicago. Remember what I said earlier? Chicago could go from the number 1 seed to the 7 seed all in the span of one weekend. It's nuts. Bears-Packers scenario number 3. If the Bears and Packers tie, the Niners jump the Packers based on NFC record. And so they would move up to the number 6 seed. And regardless of what happens between the Bears and the Packers, win, loss, or tie for either team, the Niners will jump one of those teams in the NFC North. Seahawks-Falcons scenario. If the Seahawks lose to the Falcons, the Niners can jump up from the 7 seed, the final wildcard spot, to the first wildcard position to the number 5 seed. Rams-Cardinals scenario here. If the Rams lose to Arizona, the Niners advance to the number 5 seed. And how about this? The wild, wild west. If the Seahawks and the Rams lose, the Niners jump up all the way to the number 2 seed. And I know a lot of people are going to say, Chase, that is impossible. We have seen crazier things happen, and I'm telling you right now, it is possible because of what we saw last Sunday. Who thought that the Rams were going to lose to the Panthers? The Panthers were drubbed by the San Francisco 49ers on Monday Night Football. They come back home, and they win by 3, and they forced 2 interceptions of Matthew Stafford, including a pick 6. And it required those types of splash plays for the Panthers to win in a game that had 5 different lead changes. But I'm telling you, some of these things could go in the Niners' favor this weekend. And so one more time, you look at the NFC playoff picture. The teams ahead of San Francisco here: Bears, Rams, Eagles, Bucks, Seahawks, Packers. Coming up next, a look at the remaining schedules for those teams who are in front of San Francisco and what the Niners might have to do in order to jump some of those teams. But first, let's get to our sponsor. Our friends at Brunt, making today's San Francisco 49ers report possible. To the real ones who watch every single episode, you've heard me talk about Brunt work boots. They're my favorite. They're comfortable, they're durable, they're built to last, and The bad things about bad boots, they can make long days even harder and longer, more arduous. But with Brunt, that is not the case. And look, with the holiday season here, you have to take advantage of this deal that Brunt has to offer. And I know a lot of you will say, Chase, you talk about football for a living. You're in front of the camera on a microphone. You probably wear makeup. I don't, but I like getting gritty. I'm a bring your lunch pail to work type of guy, and that's why I love Brunt workwear. Choosing work boots used to mean sacrificing comfort or durability. If they felt good, they didn't last. And if they lasted, they wrecked your feet. Brunt thought that was BS, so they built tough boots that feel great from day one. No break-in, no sore feet, because people out there doing the real work shouldn't have to choose between comfort or durability. Brunt stands behind what they make. You can wear these boots to work, and if they're not right for you, you send them back. It's a no-risk gift. The boots that I have that I just showed you, the Marin work boots, these Brunt boots were comfortable right out of the box. Most other boots require a significant break-in, and that period can take a really long time, not with Brunt. But Brunt also isn't just about work boots. They offer a full range of high-performance gear built for tough jobs, from heavy-duty work pants to weather-resistant jackets. They have it all. Brunt designs durable, reliable workwear to keep you protected, productive, and comfortable in any condition. With temperatures dropping and the holidays coming up, it's time to treat yourself or somebody else, a hardworking man in your life maybe, to real comfort. Skip the throwaway gifts. Get something built to last. Brunt Workwear. Our listeners, our viewers, get $10 off their entire order when you use the code CHAT at checkout. That's bruntworkwear.com/chat. Use that code CHAT. Order today and let them know you heard about them right here on the show. All right. I showed you the NFC playoff picture just moments ago, and I queued this up that we are going to take a gander at the teams in front of the Niners and their remaining schedules. San Francisco, no doubt, has a pretty hard remaining schedule. Titans, at Colts, home against Bears, home against Seattle. It's not tougher than the Chicago Bears remaining schedule. They have to play the Packers 2 times in 3 weeks. On the road at Lambeau in Week 14, at home against the Packers on Saturday in Week 16, and in between that, a home game against Cleveland. After that stretch, the Bears go on the road to play the Niners. This game could determine so much inside the NFC, and then the Bears round out with the Lions, and that could be a win-or-go-home game. The Rams remaining schedule. Kind of easy, but that's what I had said going into that Panthers game, and they lost. On the road against the Cardinals. They do get the Lions at home. On the road against Seattle. You talk about a big game there. Might have to do a watch party for that right here on the San Francisco 49ers report. Week 17, Rams on the road against the Falcons on Monday night. NFL, can we please flex that game out of there? Nobody needs to watch Atlanta. Dog shit team on Monday night. And then the Rams round out with the Cardinals in Week 18. The Eagles' remaining schedule. Keep in mind, they've lost 2 games in a row. They will be on the road to play the Chargers on Monday Night Football. They will not have Jalen Carter. We'll see if Justin Herbert plays for L.A. They have the Raiders at home. They're on the road against the Commanders on Saturday. Jaden Daniels, full participant as of this recording on Thursday, and so he's probably going to be back unless he gets injured again. Eagles have to go on the road to play the Buffalo Bills. Bills have a lot to fight and play for, and then the Eagles get the Commanders again. Commanders would love to play spoiler and mess up the Eagles' season, especially after the Birds put up 55 points on them in the NFC Championship game last year. The Buccaneers' remaining schedule. Mike Evans might be able to return after breaking his collarbone. Home against the Saints. Home against the Falcons on Thursday Night Football. Why are we putting Atlanta in these primetime spots? My gosh, me and Chip are laughing over here. On the road against Carolina. On the road against the Dolphins. Home against Carolina. 2 times against the Panthers in 3 weeks. That could determine the NFC South victor. The Seahawks' remaining schedule. At Falcons, they get the Colts at home, the Rams at home, and then they round out on the road against Carolina. That's probably the longest flight, one of the longest flights in the NFL. I guess Seattle to Miami would be the longest, but that's a long flight. Seattle to Carolina, Pacific Northwest to the East Coast, and then Seahawks round out with the Niners on the road at Levi Stadium. Juices are going to be flowing in that game. And then the Packers' remaining schedule. Week 14, Bears at home. On the road against the Broncos. On the road against the Bears, short week as well. They play the Ravens at home, and then on the road against the Vikings. So of all those teams, I would say Chicago and Green Bay have the two hardest schedules, and they're both vying for that NFC North crown. So predict it here for me. What seed will the Niners get once the playoffs come around? Again, they have a better chance of getting the number one seed than they do of missing the playoffs. As always, join the conversation down in the comment section. Thanks to all of the real ones who are still watching. And if that's you, type real one right now.